1. This happened a while ago, and I thought, why not talk about it? The thing was that I'm in the hospitality industry. Not going to state which exactly, but the idea is that the place is really classy, expensive, and it is a touristy area. For my interview, I technically had to talk to the HR manager first, before talking to the department manager. After talking to the HR manager, I was brought to this room where it was not too filled with customers. But the main idea is that there's people. I had to wait for the department manager to come, so the first bright idea was, oh, why not explore the room? HR was cool with me exploring the room. No, I was exploring the room, pretty amazed with the stuff there. The service-scape, the ambience was really nice and all, and I was looking around when I walked past this lady. This lady suddenly called me and asked, "Can you get a glass of water for my child?" I was honestly pretty surprised since the clothes I was wearing were not similar to the place's uniform at all. I was wearing a black blazer, formal and all, but the employees' uniforms were not black. Well, I couldn't say I was working here because that might cause the lady to explode at me when I was at an interview. I decided to get the glass of water for the child, making sure it was not too full, and that the child was holding the glass with 2 hands. The lady followed by asking if she can have some creamer. No, I looked at the table. There were no creamers. I don't know where it is. I don't work here. I said sure and asked for one of the employees to get creamer for the lady instead. I immediately went to sit down and just wait after that. It was really awkward. I didn't really know what to do after that, honestly. Surprisingly enough, while I was still waiting to see the department manager, the lady was nice enough to come close to where I was sitting and said sorry to me. I just acknowledged it and said no worries at all, but it was awkward after that. Cut to the ending. I am hired by the place, but I will be working in another department instead. I'm honestly happy since the other department looks really tiring, but fun to work at. I'm honestly thankful that I'm hired now. So cool. 2. I was in the Chicago O'Hare Airport, getting there around 9 at night, and a bunch of flights had been cancelled there. I was flying from Omaha back home to Florida. Well, I finally got my flight home squared away, having to go through DC the next day. Fuck me. And it was time to find a hotel for the night. At first I was on hold with the airline while they looked for a hotel within my budget, which was actually very high since work was paying for this. And I was on the phone for at least 30 minutes or so while this guy was making calls to local hotels. After that, I was looking online myself, and even on VRBO. So I decided to sit in the closest seat I could find during this call and my search, which was located behind an information desk. And this was just a desk, a simple everyday office desk, not like one of those huge information circle desks built into the structure. I had my luggage right in front of me, so if people bothered to actually see me, they would know that I was a traveler just like them. I even started talking to 2 other ladies that took up camp on the desk in front of me while they searched for hotels too. There was a sign on the desk that read closed, but it was likely hard to see given the other people sitting on the desk. Anyway, I probably got asked at least a dozen times about where something was in the airport, where was a good place to eat if I knew of any hotels in the area, where were the overnight cots set up, etc. When the first person to come up to me asked me something, I figured they thought I worked at the desk. But I listened to their question in case I could actually help. Yeah, I couldn't. So as time went on, I just kept telling people I was just traveling and didn't work for the airport or any airline. Not one person was rude or yelled at me, despite everyone being tired, frustrated, and likely hungry. After the first few people came up to me, I thought about moving somewhere else, but there honestly wasn't anywhere else to go. That place was packed with upset air travelers. The first time it happened, I was actually like, oh, maybe I'll have something to post on I don't work here lady, but no, all my encounters were normal and pleasant under the circumstances. For those interested, I actually ended up having to spend the night in O'Hare. I now call it the O'Hare Hotel. I met up with a lovely woman who ironically was headed to Omaha, where I just come from, and a nice guy a few years older than me. We hunkered down in a long, very lit hallway for the night, after finding some cots, blankets, and pillows. The airport also hands out these little sundry bags, which was convenient. My airline tried to reroute me all over the East Coast to get me home, so early in the AM when they woke us up, we had to get up at like 5 when the airport officially opened. I booked another direct flight on a different airline for around 7 in the morning. I'm glad work was paying, so I was lucky to have that option. I know a lot of people were really stuck at the mercy of the Chicago air gods. And this was June 2018, by the way, so not related to bad winter weather at all. 3. This has been taking place over the last few weeks, but let me give you a background. I don't know any other job that does this, but my job will have my boss text me what my work schedule is for the week. If they are short-staffed, she will text me the night before asking, not demanding me to do a shift. I know no other job that has that setup, but I'm sure there are plenty. A few weeks ago, I got a text from Karen at 1 a.m. "Jorge, this is Karen. You're on first shift." I woke up since I really need to turn my text alarms down, so I messaged back. "I'm not Jorge. There is no Jorge, so nope." The Karen texted back. "Jorge, stop messing around. I'm Ms. Bob. I am your supervisor. You need to do as I say." I texted back. "Still not Jorge. I'm Avocado. And I don't know Bob. I don't even know anyone named that. I'm female to boot. You got the wrong number. Please check it." After that, no text until the next day, which followed the same formula. And this went on for a couple of weeks, every couple of days. Then one day I started getting calls from strange numbers. All would hang up and then text me calling me Jorge's name, and all with Karen saying she tried calling him but got no one. Seriously, she would hang up before I could even answer. You know, during the first ring, I tried calling her back and even left voicemails telling her I am not Jorge, stop calling, stop texting, I don't work for you. She did that repeatedly for a while until yesterday. Yesterday, she called me when I was just getting off work and my friend was picking me up. "Is that her?" asked my friend. "Yep." I replied and answered the phone. She was on it this time and livid. "Hell," I started, never got it out. "Jorge, stop this nonsense. You have work right now. Get here," she snapped. "Look, lady, I don't work for you. I'm not a guy in any way. Do I sound male to you? Stop this BS, I said. My friend wandered off while I was on the phone. I wasn't too far off from my workstation. Karen was now going off and swearing. "I am your supervisor. If you don't come in, you're fired," she yelled. "I don't have a supervisor, I have a manager. And she doesn't have a man's first name for a last name, or sound insanely suspicious," I snapped. I was so done with this, I was about to start yelling horrible things when my manager touched my shoulder. My friend had found my manager and got her. My manager gestured to me to hand over my phone. I did, as I could hear Karen go totally nutso on the other end. "Stop yelling now! How dare you treat my employees so poorly?" snapped my manager. After some more shouts that could be heard over the phone, my manager yelled, "If you ever talk to my employee again, I am calling the cops." She shouted into the phone before clicking a few buttons. "Sorry, I blocked her. Just block any number from here. She's not with us," she said. "No kidding. Karen thought Avocado was named Jorge. She's not," said my friend. "That is crazy," said my manager. My phone started to ring. It was another one of the numbers Karen used. "Her again?" "Yeah," I said and blocked it. I was scared to block her in case she was a boss in some way here, as I do have a few male names as nicknames, so I thought she might be confused. I said, "Nope, only I or another manager will message you your schedule, and we will never raise our voice at you like that. You have a boss who does that? Report them," said my manager before she sent me off to enjoy the rest of my day. I love my boss and friends. They're all so awesome. 4. When I was a kid, my mom worked from home and we had a telephone with 2 lines going into it. One for the house and one for her work. We also used to have a green giant a couple towns over. The last 2 digits of both our phone numbers were transposed, 16 for us and 61 for them. About twice a month, someone would call at any and all hours of the day and night asking if they had to come in or what time they should be there. Being that Mom had her business when this first started, she was confused as hell. Most people would naturally apologize profusely, but a lot of times people would hang up, then immediately call back again because of a misdial. It went on for 8 years. At some point, Mom started screwing with the people and telling them that they could have the day off, or that they should come in when they didn't have to. In hindsight, I guess that was kind of mean. But she did call Green Giant to complain nicely that their employees were derps. Then we moved out of state. She got a new number for the business and people immediately started calling asking if they could come in for a job interview, what time we open and close, and if the position was still available. Of course, Mom would reply with, "No, we're not hiring," and everything she thought was aimed towards her business, like her actual business hours, 10 to 5, closed weekends. The best ones were the people who would flip their lid like, "Oh my god, that's not enough time to see and enjoy everything with my family," and hang up in a huff. The amount of these huffs was amazing considering we thought they were asking about our little retail and art store. It went on like this for a couple weeks before finally, she got out of someone that they were looking for the general information for Dollywood. Think like a tiny Six Flags theme park, but for Dolly Parton. Again, the numbers were almost identical, which was only made worse one summer when the local newspaper printed the wrong number for Dollywood in their want ads. People were downright mean, like the screw-up was our fault. I answered phones a lot working that summer too. Some wouldn't accept it wasn't the business they thought they were calling, despite us answering with our business name. Others argued that they called the right number, so clearly it was our mistake we didn't get the hiring memo. I guess they thought we were a department of Dollywood. How dare we slander Dolly's poor name like that, pretending to be her business? About 3 months after dealing with crap and insults, Mom changed her number. We did call the paper to ask if they'd fix a newspaper ad, but they never did, despite saying they would. To this day, I'm paranoid of answering numbers I don't recognize. 5. Some context. I work at a theme park that has shows with activities throughout the day, as well as accommodation. We also do kids' birthday parties. For reference, the birthday parties have a per-head cost per child, which includes a 2-hour time slot, a party host, party room, food and activities. They are also entitled to spend the day in the park seeing our shows and activities outside of the 2-hour time slot. We include 2 parents free of charge with each party booking. Any extra parents wanting to come along into the park get 50% discount on entry, as well as any extra children not with the party. Example, siblings of kids attending the party. This is of course flexible when the children are young and need a parent to accompany them, but generally we have between 9 and 12-year-olds, and most parents send their kid in and come back in 2 hours to pick them up. I run the accommodation and also book the functions, including parties, and my office is in the same area as the front ticket desk. This is helpful if there are any questions or confusions about the party, or payment or anything like that, as I can step in and help if ticket person does not know the answer. I was working in my office this day and Ben was working the ticket desk. It was a quiet day, and my check-ins had all arrived by 2:30 p.m., we close at 4 p.m. So I sent Ben home early and covered the ticket desk. Crazy Lazy has booked party for yesterday. They arrived 2 hours before their 1 p.m. time slot, which I said was fine, so they could decorate the room a bit, drop off the cake, etc., and see some of our shows before the party. They were all lovely, and I showed them into the party room and let them be. They paid their remaining balance on arrival and also paid for 7 additional adults at 50% discount to enter, as they didn't want them paying for themselves, which is fairly common, and left their names at the door so we would let them in without charging them. All is well, the 7 guests all arrive at various times before the party. Party time rolls around, and the host is here to greet everyone, confirms with us that they are all paid up, and then leaves everyone inside. It is the job of the host to confirm how many extra people are entering as well, and make sure they have all paid. However, this can be tricky as there are sometimes a lot of people in the ticketing area, and it's hard to tell who is who in the party and who isn't. It was also this particular host's second party she had run, so she is a newbie and doesn't necessarily remember the little things to do just yet. Generally, it's not a problem anyway, as most people are very honest and just come to pay straight away. I should note that the weather was fairly crappy yesterday. It was cold and raining on and off, despite it being the first day of summer. A lot of the park is outdoors, but most shows and activities are indoors, and anything that actually happens outdoors is either cancelled or, more likely, moved indoors. So party happens. Some guests leave at the end of the 2 hours, some, including birthday girl and her family, stay the extra hour until closing time. I see them leaving and taking balloons and presents out to the car and farewelling friends. They seem very happy. That being said, I didn't see the mum, Crazy Lady, only the child and dad. The dad even excitedly walked past the desk with a grandparent to show him a cool thing near the entrance he had missed earlier. The grandparent was carrying a big bag of helium balloons, and I offered to hang on to them in my office while they walked through the cool thing, which he accepted. They came back out a few minutes later. Note the grandparent had no obvious mobility issues. This is relevant later. Took the balloons and said thank you. As far as I could tell, everything went well with no issues. Fast forward to today. A coworker emails me that I missed a call from Crazy Lady and to please call her back ASAP. I was curious as I recognized the name as being the birthday mom from yesterday. I called her back from the main office phone, which meant that 4 other managers were within earshot. CL starts by talking about how they paid for the party and paid for 7 extra guests to come in, as they didn't want their friends to pay for entry, and she was happy to do that. But 5 other families also came into the park for the party, and they didn't pay. Apparently this is very unfair because they got in for free, so she starts asking for a refund for the 7 tickets she paid for. I say that I'm disappointed that 5 families were dishonest and chose to sneak in without paying, and if we'd noticed at the time, we would have stopped them and asked them to pay. But we can't give a refund for you just because some of your friends were dishonest. At this point, I'm wondering why the heck she is telling us that her friends snuck in. Like, maybe just keep quiet about it and they would have got away with it. But no, she is demanding we refund her because it's just so unfair. I keep saying no, and then she starts claiming that some of the shows were cancelled, so the extra guests didn't even get to do anything. I'm like, as far as I'm aware, nothing was cancelled. Looking around at the other managers who are now listening intently at this point. They are all looking at me, shaking their heads, and nothing was cancelled. She keeps repeating herself, and I actually said, I'm not really sure what you're referring to. All of our shows take place indoors, and we had no reason to cancel them. Except for insert the main show that is the reason a lot of people attend the park here, as it is impossible to move that indoors. But I know 100% that show went ahead, and it has never been cancelled in the 5 years I have worked here. And I'm currently in the room with 4 other managers who are giving me very confused looks, as they were here yesterday and no shows were cancelled. She keeps insisting, then asks someone in the room with her what was cancelled, then comes back and says, It was X activity that was cancelled. Okay, not a show, but an outdoor activity. I repeat this so the other managers can hear. They all shake their heads confused, as this activity was not cancelled. I say this to her, and she just keeps insisting that it was cancelled. I suggest that perhaps it was just moved indoors, and perhaps her guests had missed the announcement about this, or not seen the sign pointing to said activity that was now indoors. No, definitely not. She even heard the announcement saying it was cancelled. One of the managers whispers that the announcement was made stating that Y activity was cancelled, but X activity is still going ahead but has been moved indoors. I repeat this to CL, but she's having none of it. Then she starts saying that the guests were all confined to the party room for the whole time because it was cold and raining, and some of them were elderly and one had a hip replacement recently, and the ground is very uneven. She is not wrong. So they weren't able to go anywhere, so they basically paid to sit in the party room. I say that's a shame that they chose to stay in the room the whole time, but that was 100% their choice. They did have the option to go see the shows if they wanted. I understand it was raining and cold, but there's nothing we can do about that. She tried to insist the shows were all cancelled. Yes, all of them though, apparently. And I'm like, no, all of the shows went ahead as I said before. One activity was cancelled due to the weather as per the note on the daily program that states, this particular activity is subject to weather, but everything else still went ahead. She is still demanding a refund, so I said, let me just have a chat with the general manager about it and I'll call you back. We hang up and all the managers in the room are like, WTF is this lady on about? I explain everything she said, confirm again that no shows were cancelled, and one manager who is also a performer and was now performing that day, confirmed she heard the announcement saying Activity Y was cancelled, but that Activity X was still happening and had been moved. I ask the GM if I'm right in saying, hell fucking no, she ain't getting a refund. And she's like, oh, absolutely. In fact, she should be providing us with names and phone numbers of her friends who snuck in so we can call them and collect payment. Call her back and say no again and ask for her friend's details. So I do. Hi, this is Allegra from the theme park returning your call. I have spoken with the GM and she has confirmed that you are not entitled to a refund and has asked if you would kindly provide the details of your friends who snuck in so we can call them to collect payment. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. That's completely ridiculous. And then says how my attitude has changed from yesterday and when we spoke on the phone to book the party. In my head, I'm like, well, yeah, of course, you're acting mental right now. So I'm not exactly my usual friendly customer service self. But actually say, well, I'm sorry if I'm coming across as rude or anything like that. I certainly don't mean to. But I'm just trying to address your concerns truthfully. She just continues saying how unfair it is that the friends got in for free, and keeps circling around between her 3 arguments for getting a refund. At one point she even claims she came to the front desk before they left, as she wanted to bring it up with me or Ben at the time, but nobody was there. I said, well, that's definitely not true, as I was in that office all day. The few times I left, Ben was there, and when he left, I was there. I also sent him home at 2:30, so I was in the office from then on, and absolutely under no circumstances is the front desk to be unattended when the front doors are open. So that's just straight up untrue. She wouldn't accept this, but moved on with repeating herself and demanding a refund. When she tried the "we had elderly guests who couldn't leave the party room" argument again, I said, well, if that's true, and I'd been informed at the time of booking, I could have explained the layout and that the ground is very uneven and can be difficult for the elderly. But you never mentioned this at the time. Even if it had been mentioned on arrival that this may have been an issue, or even half an hour after they had entered, I could have given a refund for these guests if they needed to leave. But no one said anything and they chose to stay in the park. But I tried to come to the desk, twice in fact, and no one was there. As I said, I was there the whole time. I may have popped into the back room for a brief moment, but no more than 20 seconds, as I don't like to leave the desk unattended. I have camera footage of the whole area, we can check if you like. She immediately dropped it and circled around again to how unfair the situation is. I keep saying no refund, so she asks if there is someone higher up she can talk to. I gleefully say yes, I'll transfer you to the GM, as I know she will back me up, and also she is 10 times better at handling conflict than me. She is also great at being passive-aggressive with customers who won't listen, and I look forward to listening in. I transfer and hear the GM rebut her arguments in the same way I did. I also hear her make a point that I'm annoyed I missed. If the guests were confined to the party room because they physically couldn't get to the shows and activities, then why was it an issue that shows were apparently cancelled? Unfortunately, I don't know what her response to this was. As a side note, the guests all seem to make it inside okay, and considering we have steps that lead up to the entrance, and then more to get inside, we do have a disability access, but it needs to be requested. Yes, it sucks, we're working on it. I'm surprised they made it inside with no issues. And also, out again at the end of the day. Convenient. Things I heard GM say during the half-hour conversation. Well, I wasn't in yesterday, but I've just finished payroll and I paid 26 staff members to be here and perform shows and run activities. And I highly doubt they were stood around scratching their asses all day. Do you think those elderly relatives could have done X activity anyway, considering it is a little kiddie's activity? Well, look, I do apologize that we moved X activity to an indoor location 50 meters away from the original location, because it was raining sideways and we wanted to keep our guests dry. Next time we won't bother since it's apparently such an inconvenience. Yes, there was an announcement made over the park-wide speakers that X activity had been moved. We obviously try our best to make sure all guests hear the announcements we make. But it is very hard to guarantee this, especially when some people are in a party room filled with 7-year-olds. Unfortunately, it's just not practical for a staff member to locate every guest in the park and approach them to make sure they heard every announcement. Yes, well, of course your friends who didn't pay didn't know what was happening around the park or at what time. It's all outlined in our program, which is given out when guests purchase their tickets. So, since they didn't pay, they didn't get one, did they? If they'd done what they were supposed to do, they would have received one and would know exactly what was going on. I actually heard variations of this one multiple times. I'm not really sure what CL was trying to argue here. I don't understand what you're asking me to do here. We can't refund guests due to poor weather. Obviously, we can't control this. We live in a location where it rains all the time, so if we gave refunds for every guest who came on a rainy day, we might as well just close the doors. We'd have no money. Sorry, I'm confused. You're saying we should have brought the shows and activities to you in the party room. Well, that's physically impossible, considering we have various buildings in the park that are attractions. I can't move a building into another building. I can't move the lolly shop into the party room. I can't move the pantomimes into the party room just for you, because then everyone else would miss out. I can't move our animals into the party room. Part of the attraction of this place is walking around the grounds and seeing the buildings and displays. Guests need to move between each thing. This is not a secret. It's a big place. Obviously, it's not all going to fit in the small party room. Yes, apparently this needed explaining. So basically what you're saying is that if someone stole a lollipop from our lolly shop, I should have to give everyone else in the park a free lollipop as well, because that one person got one for free. No, it's not different, actually. It's exactly what you're saying, because your friends did the wrong thing and didn't pay when they should have. You should get your money back because it's not fair that you had to pay and they didn't? It's not going to happen. A lot of these were repeated multiple times, as this lady obviously wouldn't listen to or accept logic. I was surprised that the conversation lasted so long, as it was very clear from the first few minutes in that GM was not going to change her mind. I would have thought she'd hang up with a sarcastic, "Well, thanks very much," or a threat to call the media or Better Business Bureau sooner, but it took a good half an hour for her to finally hang up on the GM. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm honestly baffled by her logic here. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild number 14 for reals this time. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And I have now, after story number 4, because it was the last one I recorded, don't ask why, sometimes things get moved around as I record, I've got 9 to 5 stuck in my head. I won't give you a rendition of it though, not to worry. Okay, well, we will be keeping this outro short. When's this going up? I think this is New Year's Day. So, may I just say, I hope you all have a very good new year as we enter the year 2020. Let's hope that, as the number suggests, the world is seeing clearer this year than it has in the past few. We need heads out of bums, not the other way around. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.